Hello, everyone. The sun has left us. The rain is falling in Vancouver. The leaves are all over the ground, which means just one thing. It is hockey season. Training camp has officially opened for all of the teams. Welcome to Agree or Disagree, the podcast, Hockey Edition for this Saturday, September the 14th. I am Kevin Olenek. We'll get into the Twitter stuff and all of that a little bit later. But joining us today is, of course, Sean. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. And enjoying all ready for hockey season. Have you got all of your stuff, etc.?
Oh, yeah, we're getting close and getting ready. And it's not rainy in Calgary, but it's definitely feeling like fall.
Yeah. Heidi, you are... I hope you're okay. I know that you are house sitting for Jack from the Oilers YYC podcast. Did you fix the dog that it appeared broken?
Yes, the dog is perfectly fine.
Okay, because he was sleeping. Weird. And Tyler's not going to be able to be with us this week, but because he is out at a conference. But I'm also a horrible human being. And there's been a guy in our chat that has been... I lock people out of houses. I lock myself out of houses. And I also don't invite people to podcasts when I assume that they're invited. So I had to make sure that Chris Schneids was invited to the podcast. So he is on with us today. How are you?
I'm doing well. And don't worry, there was no hurt feelings.
I know, but it still doesn't make me I forgot. I lack consideration at times. So this week was my first week at... studying things at BCIT officially, so there was a lot of attendance stuff. This will connect. So we all had to say here, not here. Taking attendance at some training camps is people like Matthew. You'd hear this sound. If you called on Brock, you might have heard this sound as well. Or Andrew, or... a number of RFAs, which has led to fan base to go many fan bases to do things like this.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Yeah, so except Toronto. Toronto is in the midst of celebration as Mitch Marner has signed. Before we get into Mr. Marner and this, because I do think that there's an educational component to this, last week we asked about panic. This week, and it was not there. Where are we this week? How are we feeling as Brock Besser is not signed, Matthew Tkachuk is not signed, Andrew Mangiapane has not signed? Where are we at right now?
I think with the Marner signing, I think we're going to see the forwards start to fall and get signed, and I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of them are signed by this time next week.
So you're okay.
Yeah, and I agree. Like I was panicking a little bit, but now that Marner's signed, I think it'll kind of like come together. I saw some rumors going around with Andrew Mangiapane yesterday. So when there's rumors, at least I don't know. That actually makes me panic less. So I think it'll be like, as Sean said, like probably within the next few days to a week max. I think all these guys get signed.
Yeah, the dominoes are bound to start falling at this point.
Yeah. Are you worried that that some of these players are not in camp though? Like a guy like Andrew Mangiapane, who had a really good second half of the year, started to kind of feel like a bit of a fit. Do you think it hurts him that he's not at camp yet?
I think for him it does. Like Chucky is fine. I think he'll be fine without being at camp. But Mangiapane, I think he could probably use that push to get onto the main team, and so it sucks for him not being there. So hopefully that gets figured out sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Sean, Chris, do you have thoughts on that? Or?
Well, yeah, I think Mangiapane's not necessarily a player who's guaranteed a spot. So him holding out at this point is detrimental to him trying to take the next step and become a bigger player for the Flames this season.
And regardless of the quality of the player, you're always going to be a step behind if the rest of the team has already started training camp and you're still waiting to negotiate.
Yes, that's also true as well. But yes, let's talk about the guy that has signed. And I tweeted out a poll on my Twitter account at KVOLE. And, love him or hate him, the Leaf fans always respond. The Mitch Marner signing, good deal, bad deal, okay deal. I got a response from somebody basically saying, you forgot to add who cares about the Leafs. And I went, yeah, I know I know that there's an F Toronto component from us up west, but from a Vancouver Canucks perspective, I do think that this is a very educational component. But first of all, your thoughts. Is the Marner deal a good deal, bad deal, or okay deal?
It's an overpayment. He's not worth the close to $11 million that he's getting. They're gonna be allocating to the cap for him at this point. But it was the price to get him signed. So, and the Leafs are basically have no cap room. So that's the other issue. Is he's overpaid and he basically took up all their cap room, and there's no way for him to the Leafs need to make moves to create cap room if there's any sort of short-term injury issues.
Chris, hi.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I would have responded to that poll with who cares about Toronto, because that's just me. But yeah, it does seem like a little bit of a steep payment there. And like, I know that there's been talk about how, like, however much Marner's going to get paid is going to possibly reflect on how much Tkachuk's going to get paid. So now that that's done, like, we'll see where Tkachuk lands now because of it. But in general, I think it was probably a little bit much. And now Toronto's kind of in cap trouble. So it'll be interesting to see what they do about that.
Yeah, I believe Cap Friendly has the Maple Leafs listed as $0 available dollars for cap space.
Yes.
And, I would definitely agree that it's an overpayment, but I would definitely also argue that Toronto loves the fact that he's in the lineup.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's not that Austin Matthews is a terrible player, but I prefer Marner over Matthews. I know that some wouldn't. I'm not saying like I like Mitch Marner as a player. I would love to see him in a if he was available, the Canucks should grab him. A lot of teams would be interested in him. But I mean, yeah, I do agree it's an overpayment. But here's the connection here as we look at Cap Friendly. We've got the Leafs are at a projected cap space of $0. But you've got Matthews, Tavares, and Marner basically combined for about $32 million, a little bit over $32 million. So you've got those three big players that you need to deal with. You have one defenseman that, other than the two RFAs, Harper and Schmaltz, you've got one defenseman available under contract going into next season. And it is a guy that I do think you're actually going to have a discussion about whether or not you want to give him a little bit of a raise in Morgan Riley, because some want to put a C on that guy, depending on your perspective on C's. And you may want to have a conversation eventually about your goaltender, Frederik Andersen. And how that connects is, of course, you've got the Canucks in the same situation. You've got the big four. You've got Pettersson, Besser, which we don't know what that contract will be, depending on who you hear and what you hear. We'll find out soon enough, I guess. Horvat and then Quinn Hughes. And then you also got the situation where you're going to have to sign Jacob Markstrom. So from the Canuck fan perspective, is there anything that you can learn from what the Leafs have done rightly or wrongly here that you think as a Canuck, the management or the Canuck team can do differently to avoid having a zero on your cap? Is there a comparison?
I'd say there is, but the thing with the Canucks and their goaltending is they still have Demko coming up, who could play into that more than Markstrom and keep the cap hit on the goaltending lower than what the Leafs have. And then I would say that it's interesting because I don't think the Canucks are going to end up paying nearly as much, because when you look at it, they've got three of the top 10 highest cap hits in the NHL in Tavares, Marner, and Matthews now. So the Canucks are not going to get that when they sign. They'll have one really big one in Pettersson, most likely, in a couple years, but Besser probably won't be super, super high. So I think there's still a lot more wiggle room in the Canucks' future as opposed to the Leafs.
Like, I think there's definitely a lesson to be learned there from what the Maple Leafs are doing, but overall, I think that as long as Benning tries to pull the same thing that Gillis did when the Canucks were going through their run back in 2010, 2011 era, and just try and do like the hometown discount angle, I think that might have some chance of working.
I don't see these players in this generation going for hometown discounts, though. I see them wanting what they deserve. So, and I think that the Canucks are willing to do that. And whether or not the big question is what's the cap going to be in a couple of years, and how does that affect Pettersson and Quinn Hughes' contract negotiations? That might actually even be the bigger point, is what the future cap hit is going to be, or the cap ceiling, I should say.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, maybe to be honest with you, I don't know about Kyle Dubas. I understand that people see him as a bit of a whiz kid that has figured things out, and I can see that argument. But there's other times that I'm like, I scratch my head a little bit with what he's doing. And I guess this is where this signing is, as I don't know, because with the Marner signing, I don't know, because you're right, you don't know about the cap hit, and maybe this actually may turn out to be a bargain in the long term, but it does feel like the Leafs are taking a huge hit right now. And if there's injuries, there could be a number of problems, but maybe Dubas I know that Dubas is smarter than me, but maybe Dubas is smarter than I'm giving him credit for.
I would say it's more his who he's got surrounding him that's really working the system. He's got Brandon Pridham, who helped develop the cap and the rules surrounding it, and then Lawrence Gilman, who, as Canucks fans know, is really good at managing the cap. He did a fantastic job for the Canucks in 2011 and the surrounding seasons.
Yeah. It is about the people that he's around for, and he learned from a pretty shrewd guy in Lou Lamoriello as well. So I am interested in that. But yeah, I agree that I don't necessarily think that there's going to be a hometown discount. I think, and right. I mean, rightly, I think the players have that right to make as much as they can. Not trying to be greedy here, but I mean, I think that that's a fair thing. Are we going to be seeing any bridge deals, or are we looking at this Marner thing for 6 years and saying that this is probably going to be the standard that a lot of players are going to be looking for?
I think we see a few different lengths. I think, but you'll see a couple bridge deals and a couple long-term deals, just like with we're seeing on the defensive side too, right? I think it makes sense for Besser to be a bridge deal. I think it makes more sense for Tkachuk and Braden Point and Mikko Rantanen to be more long-term deals.
Heidi, do you want Tkachuk in a long-term deal, or do you think it'll be a bridge deal?
I think Heidi might actually be taking care of the dogs right now because her mic is muted.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
No, sorry, I'm back. Hi, I'm back.
So Heidi's looking after dogs.
I heard the last little bit of that. So you're talking about bridge deals. I've actually heard I would rather have Tkachuk be on a long-term deal, but I think because even the cap situation we have in Calgary, I've seen some numbers being thrown around with possible bridge deals with him as well, and like I wouldn't hate that idea.
Right. But I mean, there is a risk to it, but yeah. I think getting Tkachuk signed, I think, is a priority, but not like but I do think it needs to be something that's win-win for everybody as well. But yeah, it will be, I think, I'm even expecting as we're talking, there could be something that happens that, like with some signings here too. So I think that there's some fluidity to the situation. So, but we will see about that.
Well, Jared Spurgeon signed for an extension. He's not an RFA, but was going to be a UFA, I think, next year. He signed an extension with the Wild for over $7 million per.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Interesting. I don't know if I would put Jared Spurgeon in a $7 million a year category, but there we go. There we go. The big story this weekend in Canucks training camp, and it does actually kind of connect here. We'll about the Flames here too. So the Canucks tweeted out their practice groups and their groups, and it turned out that Jake Virtanen was on group 3, and Travis Green was heard saying basically that there was some issues with Virtanen and conditioning. As of training camp this morning, Virtanen is not on that group. He is back on the top 2 groups. But was this harsh for Travis Green to put him with a group of ECHLers, minor leaguers? Was this too harsh for Travis Green to do, or is this on Jake Virtanen for not coming into training camp in the expected shape that he was supposed to be in?
It's on Virtanen. Like Green's very the one thing. Like people, I think one of the things that people don't give Travis Green credit for is his communication skills. He's always very direct, and the players know what to expect and what the expectations on them are. And if you know that's the expectation, you can't get there, then that's on you.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement that that's entirely on Virtanen. He needs to take the responsibility and make sure that he's training in the offseason and controlling what he's eating.
Yeah, like just from my perspective too, like I would see Bill Peters doing the exact same thing in Calgary if one of the players showed up and just was not in shape. So yeah, like it's on Virtanen and good on them honestly for quote unquote punishing him for not taking care of himself.
Now, to be fair, Troy Stecher didn't exactly. Well, I mean, I don't want to come across harsh here, but Troy Stecher had a tough day yesterday too, with the bag skate as well. So if Virtanen wasn't necessarily maybe the only one that came not in the best condition. Stecher had a tough day as well. I guess, but with Virtanen. The conversation around here on Vancouver radio was, this is it. It's time to move on for Virtanen. This is enough. He's not going to make the team. He's not going to be on the top 9. Is this panic, or is this like is Virtanen's time up in Vancouver?
Oh, Virtanen's time's not up, but he still needs to step up. I think this was just more of a wake up call by Travis Green. From the sounds of it, like it wasn't like that Virtanen was completely out of shape. He just missed the targets that were set out for him, and it wasn't by much. I think he'll still be fine. I think he still can be a very useful player for the Canucks, but I don't think this is the end at this point.
Yeah, like I wouldn't count him out at this point either. I think he's still worth something. He just kind of needs to get a wake-up call. It's just a matter of how you communicate that to him effectively to make him realize that.
Yeah, that's, I guess, the question there. In Calgary, what I found fascinating, it's not surprising that, as Heidi calls him, Dad, Mark Giordano was the best in fitness. But what I find fascinating is who followed him. Number 2 was Tobias Reeder, who's on a PTO with the Flames after Bob Nicholson blamed Reeder for the Oilers not making the playoffs last year. And number 3 is a guy that was on the trade block, is still on the trade block, and Michael Frolik. I'm finding fascinating. What is it about Gio that just this guy is at his age continues to win I don't think there's been a time. Well, in the last few years anyway, that he has not been the top conditioned athlete on the Flames. But what is it about him that just keeps doing that? I mean, I thought that 36 was like 902 NHL years. He's supposed to be deteriorating. What is going on here?
He's Mr. Young and Fresh. That's just what it is. He's Mr. Young and Fresh, and he just keeps working super hard during the off season, and that's just kind of the person that he is. And it was actually no surprise to see him on the top of that list.
And Kev, I'm not sure if you've forgotten, but the Sedins almost every year were in the top of the fitness category for the Canucks when they were still playing. So
yeah. Well, it was painful when I was running the Vancouver Marathon, and both Daniel and Henrik probably would have laughed at me. So yes, I'm aware of what they're. Yes, no, they're still in great condition. They probably could. The Sedins could probably play for the Whitecaps and be on top. Probably they're two of their best players. And I'm not slamming the Whitecaps. I'm complimenting the Sedins in their shape and abilities, is what I'm saying. But it is fascinating to me. Like, is there a generational difference in how people look after their health? So you look at in the NFL, you look like a guy like Brady, who you can argue the science around what his choices for foods are. And if you think it's hocus pocus, whatever, the guy might play until he's 60. Who knows? And then you got guys like Gio and the Sedins. And then there's other players that are in a younger generation that they're not in the same part. Is that part of age, or is that part of commitment? What do you think?
It's part of wisdom, part of understanding what's needed. The Sedins and Gio aren't necessarily the quote unquote most skilled players. They make their money based off of how smart they play. And they would, but they knew that they need to be in really good shape to be able to capitalize on that. So I think it's knowing what your strengths are and how to accentuate them and how to help mitigate your weaknesses. And that just comes with getting older and learning and becoming. So it's more wisdom as opposed to just a different generation gap, because you'll see that as players get older, they're going to figure out how to get into better shape and stay there and control their diet better.
Any other thoughts?
I'm in agreement, so I don't really have anything to add.
Heidi?
Yeah, no, that's basically, I think, is it. Although, like, you can say a little bit maybe about, like, kind of the age and generational, just in the sense of, like, I imagine how some of these guys spend their summers. Like, Gio is the type that I think was probably, like, yes, spending time with, like, obviously, like, his family and stuff during the summer, but was training hard too. But, like, I think the younger guys, like Gaudreau and Monahan and stuff, like, they're still out having fun and being guys that are in their 20s and want to go travel and hang out with their girlfriends and their friends and all that kind of stuff. So I think that kind of does play a little bit of a factor in there.
Actually, Heidi does kind of have a point that I just kind of thought of here, where the generation gap might play a little bit into it because of how, at least it seems like later millennials and now the start of Gen Z, where they tend to not want to settle down until they're almost into their 30s. So maybe that sort of still wanting to live life in your 20s is affecting their preparation in the off season. Who knows?
I still think it's just them having fun. I don't think you can really make a big deal on that, because I would say look at Paul Horvath. Like, he's part of that, and he still goes around and travels. He still shows up in really good shape.
Yeah, I'm not saying everyone, just
Yeah, but I think it's just more the fact that they're young 20-year-olds. Everyone goes through that stage, especially when you're making that much money.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is fascinating. It would be interesting. Maybe we'll get a couple of hockey personal trainers on to hear, like, that perspective, because I'm fascinated how what that goes into. Because I mean, I think there's part mindset, but also some other things as well. But I do. So I'm going to make a bit of a bold prediction, and you can agree or disagree with this. I think Tobias Reeder has a really, probably out of all of them, especially the forwards, I think Tobias Reeder has the best chance of making the Flames lineup this year. Of all the guys that they brought in for PTOs, Ronaldo, Devontae Smith-Pelly, I think Reeder has the best chance.
I'm not sure there's much to argue about. You're basically saying he's the best of the random players you invited. So
yeah, like I don't have any arguments really for or against that at all either. I think, and I know this is sort of going off topic, but like I know some people were thinking that like Lucic was not going to be like very good, and I think I predict that he's going to probably surprise people out of camp. So yeah, it's really hard to say too. And because we have some of these guys missing out of camp right now, that to see maybe where these PTO guys do end up. But I'm also interested too to see how Alan Quine does this year too at training camp, to see if he'll be able to spend some more time up at the big club.
I like Alan Quine. I wonder if his defensive game is up to snuff, but his offensive game has always been there. But his defensive game, maybe, I think, has had. He is skating on the first unit or on the first team. He was. What did Pat Steinberg have him? He was on the fourth line anyway, so maybe there's some shot there. But yeah. So, but that will be interesting in it. And Frolik is also a guy that's also in great shape. I'm interested in seeing what he does in camp. I know that there's trade rumors around him. Expected he was, I don't know if him and Bill Peters got on the same page or not, but I'm interested in him. He's always a guy that comes in great shape as well. But if we can move on to the length of the preseason, as an NFL fan, there has been a lot of debate around the length of their preseason. The LA Rams did not play a single starter throughout the preseason. A lot of other teams started to follow that same trend. The Edmonton Oilers are saying that Connor McDavid will play the combination of one preseason game for the entire time. So and partially that is because McDavid has a bit of an injury, but in part also because you don't want Connor McDavid to be hurt at the start of the season, obviously. So is the preseason too long? And do you think that there are going to be teams that are altering their strategy on how they're going to be playing their main players during this preseason?
I think they will. Yeah, I think you're going to see, and the term load management comes in again, where you're going to see them not play some of their top players, especially if there's any sort of health concerns throughout the preseason. But then comes the question: is at least in Canada, the teams still seem to want to make us pay full dollar for these preseason games when we're not getting the full lineup, and these players aren't playing 100%, aren't playing at the level that we expect them to. So I think that we are going to see it. I don't think it's going to be an overnight change. I don't think it's going to be a change that really takes hold this season, but maybe going over through the next couple seasons.
I don't think that preseason is like that bad or that long. I think it's a good time to that the teams kind of like suss out things like who's going to make the big club, who's not, who kind of maybe how you put your lines together and do a little bit of experiments and stuff like that during the preseason. So yeah, like I don't know why we would change much of any of that stuff. Like, yeah, okay, like what John was saying about like the charging for preseason games and stuff like that. I don't know if he's just alluding to the fact that when even like the Flames and Canucks preseason game here even seems to be super expensive. But I've been to other preseason games here that like we're not expensive at all. It always just seems like that maybe that it's that Canucks one that the price seems to go up a little bit on.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with the length of preseason either. I'm in agreement with Sean in regards to like how the load management might play into it more in the future, but and I totally agree as far as the price of preseason games. Although Heidi does bring up a good point that it might just be like a rivalry thing or what they consider a premier matchup. But I honestly think if it's preseason and we're getting half the team, we should be paying half the regular price.
Yeah, I wonder if it's different if you're a season ticket holder. Well, obviously it is different if you're a season ticket holder. I don't know how they calculate that into the price, but yeah, it would be nice if it was a little bit cheaper for sure. But I actually kind of think it is a little bit too long in the sense like you're playing. I mean, you're playing a lot of games. There's like 3 weeks of games, and I can see like for the players, they probably really want to get into that. I probably would be beneficial if it was more like kind of tournament based or something like that. But I think it will be interesting to see how that the load is. I mean, we don't see a lot of NHL season-ending injuries in the preseason. That's one thing that I do think in comparison to the NFL, that happened a lot. A guy like Darius Geis was out for the year, and then that wrecks your season, but it is a little bit different. But yeah, I agree. It would be interesting to see about the price. But they price what they price, I guess. And, in Calgary, you guys have to pay for a new arena. I'm just saying. A new arena is coming, so they got to find ways to get money out of you in some way, shape, or form. Right?
I mean, I guess, but I don't know. They're not getting a ton of money from me because I buy a lot of my tickets on StubHub, so I can't even remember the last time I actually paid actual Ticketmaster for tickets to a Flames game, so I don't know how I'm not really contributing in that way.
Screw you, Calgary Flames. StubHub rules.
No, I just spend my money on things like hats and jerseys and all that stuff. So.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, that's fair. That helps them. You're contributing to the cause there. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it could use one more week less, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. That will probably be something that eventually comes up, I think, a little bit in terms of load management as well. Let's see. So, to go off before we get to Heidi's, Heidi, do you have a question for us this week?
No, not really. If I do have something if we absolutely need to, but it's not one of my hard hitting questions.
Okay. Oh, that's maybe the name of this. Heidi's hard-hitting question. What about that?
It's not too bad. Well, maybe we'll work on that name, but it's not too bad.
Okay. So Jillian Fisher is, of course, one of the more probably up there, one of the more popular YouTube watching. Very entertaining. Has some fun stuff. Talks about all the teams. Really entertaining. But she stepped on it a little bit with a photo of Nazem Kadri and Brad Bellemore. She has since apologized for that. She has taken it down and is reloading the video about why your team sucks. And it relates to an interesting conversation. We didn't get into this last week, but Evander Kane did talk about the article about racism in hockey. And here was kind of a bit of an interview that he did about his remarks in social media when he was asked this here. Actually, this was a few years ago, but I'm still going to play it.
I think, in terms of that quote, I'm definitely referring to, social media and that sort of stuff. And, I mean, nobody's ever, and I don't think anybody ever will come up directly to my face and say anything negative. So it's more so on that, and anybody can go on and have a look at themselves.
So this is your, let's just be specific here, and no one can imagine what it's like. It's probably awful. But you're talking about things that are said about you.
Twitter, anything, social media. I don't have a lot of the social media.
Oh, yeah. Anyway,
just different things that people can hide behind a computer and say what they want.
Yeah. So, in terms of Evander Kane's comments, Jillian Fisher's approach, maybe we can spend a few minutes talking a little bit about what we're seeing about that. Is this a conversation that we need to be talking more about, or is this is this a conversation that the hockey community is an elephant in the room and the hockey community has ignored a little bit?
Honestly, I didn't even watch Jillian Fisher's video. I had seen that she had made it, and then I was going to watch it, and then I had it, and then I just saw the tweet this morning, which I shared with you guys about how she was pulling the video because of this mistake. So I don't know exactly the context or whatever, or exactly what happened. But just if we want to talk in general about racism and within the hockey community, there's definitely it's definitely a conversation that I think is worth having. We could probably have an entire podcast episode about it. But yeah, so they it's worth talking about, but it's worth talking about with I think with some examples and with research rather than just kind of just having a kind of quick general conversation about it, if that makes any sense.
Dig into it rather than just then just be flippant about it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It's a conversation worth having a serious conversation about.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that needs to be talked about. I don't think it's really rampant. I think you're going to have a couple people say if they say things wrong, or you're going to have the just someone who's behind the times and not understanding how to talk to in this, or just has the wrong mentality. But I don't think it's a rampant issue.
Yeah, I agree in the sense that I don't think it's a huge issue maybe in the league right now. But I feel like the league has definitely trended in the right direction in regards to it. But I also think that just society in general is also trending that way. So the NHL fan base and the NHL players are kind of following that trend, I guess.
My thing too is I just thought about this is that we said that maybe it isn't too rampant and stuff, but what are we not hearing about? If we're not hearing about it on Twitter or from the various sports news agencies and stuff, then how do we even know about what's going on at say at ice level or in locker rooms?
And yeah, there is that conversation to be had. We don't hear about a lot of stuff, so if it doesn't get pressed, then we're not going to know about it.
The one thing that is popping in my brain is around the conversation around the reputation around European players, which I don't know if that has fully changed over, because it used to be if it was a European player, they were lazy, they were not going to fight, they were going to be dirty, they were not committed to the team. And it was very rare that a European player would be a captain of a team, but that has changed a bit over time. But I'm not sure if we still are dealing with that mentality or where we're at with that. I mean, let's not. We talked earlier about the Sedins. There have been fan bases that have mocked the Sedins and have called the Sedin sisters. That was something that was a reputation for a really long period of time, and it was laughed at, but maybe this was a bit more, maybe we should have, looking back, maybe we should have looked at that a little bit differently and more offensively than oh yeah, that was really funny, the Sedin sisters, things like...
Well, that whole thing about calling them the Sedin sisters has got to do with more than just making fun of them for being European. There's a whole other issue with that being possibly offensive to women as well. And I
Absolutely.
remember that discussion being talked about as well.
Yeah, I'm certainly not saying it was only offensive to one group of people. It was an offensive comment that you could, to a number of groups, I would say there. But in terms of the European culture, I don't know if that has particularly changed. And as well, and I mean, one of the controversies around Don Cherry was his wording towards the European players. I mean, we cannot deny that he has said some really crude, crass stuff to European players. He has butchered names. He also butchered Luongo's name as well, to be fair. But, I mean, he has butchered names, and he has kind of brushed off the European player a little bit. And I don't know where we're at with that mentality, if that has changed or not. I'm intrigued about that. That's one thing.
Like, I feel like Don Cherry definitely has a borderline xenophobic sort of issue going on. But as far as the name mispronunciation, I don't think he does that with any sort of malice towards any one particular person or where they came from. Because I think he's butchered as many North American names as he has European ones.
True.
I think that's just maybe possibly just him being lazy and not looking into how to pronounce names properly.
Yeah. And
I think we can all just be honest and say that he's kind of getting a little senile.
well, I think that there was a question about his health over the Stanley Cup Finals for sure. So but for some people, but who knows?
Yeah, I think looking back at that's the way we've used certain terms and used them to describe people and hockey players specifically. I do think that you can take a look back at and realize how wrong they were. But that's in the past. All we can do now is go forward and say that those terms are not wrong. We should be trying to educate people on the effects that they do have.
Yeah, I agree. Something maybe we can dig into a little bit, but I do think that there was an important conversation to have. And she owned it. Jillian Fisher owned it and is reloading that. So we give her kudos for that. Is there anything else we do need to talk about this week that we missed?
I wanted to bring up, just as I said, I don't have a hard-hitting question, but I wanted to know how you guys thought about the Heritage Classic jerseys that came out for Winnipeg and for Calgary this week.
Did Winnipeg's come out? Because they did. I know. Okay, I got to find these.
I even tweeted yesterday that I find both of them pretty good looking. They both look quite slick. And coming from a Canucks fan, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, I like them both. Like, they both have the classic look. It's gonna be that's gonna be a fun game. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I really like both of them. I like that classic Jets logo. Of course, that Jets jersey, I always think looks better in white, but the Flames are going to be the white team this year. So, but yeah, the Flames one looks slick. If I'm not going to get my Blasty jersey, then this one is a second best. And there's a lot of talk about how that jersey style that they're going to have for the Heritage Classic game might possibly work its way into being a permanent jersey for the Flames. There's lots of little speculation and stuff going on around that.
Especially if it's as well received as I believe it has been so far.
Yeah.
So the Jets are the home team in the Heritage Classic then? I'm assuming?
I think so.
Okay.
Stuff like jersey color, I would believe that, yeah.
Okay. I really liked the old Flames Heritage Classic jersey too. The one that when they played in, what year was that they played at McMahon Stadium?
You mean the Harry Potter jersey?
Yes. I liked it. I don't know. I kind of like that one. Yeah, I like that Jets one too. I like that old logo. I think it's a good classic one. Yeah, I don't mind. I really, if I was to compare, if I was to have a choice, I definitely think the Flames Road Heritage Classic or White Heritage Classic jersey is better than the one that they have now. And I kind of hope that they go back to that red. I'm kind of getting a little bit tired of the dark red that they're using for home. I think it's time to go back to that light, old school red. The one thing I kind of wish the Jets. It's weird that the Jets have the white out and they're dressed in blue at home now. I find that weird because it worked so well back in the day when they were wearing white and it was a whiteout. It just looked much cooler to me. Now it looks weird to me.
I don't know. I honestly think maybe the reason why they probably did want to do that, but maybe the Flames said something and they were like, no, we want to have the white jerseys this time, and we want to make an excuse to make a kind of retro white jersey to test the waters on the whole jersey situation in Calgary.
Maybe.
But I'm not going to fault the Winnipeg fans for wanting to keep tradition,
though. No. And, that Jets logo, I do like. Yeah, it's a very striking jersey. What did you think of what do you think of the Oilers jersey?
Oh, it's ugly.
God awful.
Hey, the Oilers boys like it. I think it's better than that orange one, but that's not saying much. I think that orange one is ugly.
That thing is, it hurts the eyes. I think that's one of the worst jerseys in sports. That in the BC Lions. I know we're talking hockey here, but the BC Lions home jersey is god awful ugly. Like, it hurts the eyes. I can't, no wonder why they're not winning.
Jumping back to hockey, though, have you guys seen the new St. Louis one that they just announced?
Oh,
yeah,
the old 90s vintage.
I'm pulling it up as we're talking.
It's the 90s one where they had the red at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, I liked that jersey. I liked that jersey a lot. Oh, yeah, I think they've changed the logo. Oh, no, they got the Stanley Cup logo on there. That's it. Yeah, interesting. Yes, interesting.
Yeah, it is really nice. I'm looking at it again now, and I'm seeing a picture of it with the player in the full gear and everything. It definitely looks pretty sharp. The red seems a little bit off on there, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, that looks
would be a good season for alternate jerseys, in my opinion.
Yes, I'm looking forward to. Yes, for sure. Yeah, I may have to purchase one if I can. Who knows? Just to have them around. All right. Anything else?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head.
All right. So we are still in the midst of rebranding the hockey podcast. We are still working on that. Our hope launch is October at some point. Hopefully October 1st. But when it happens, you will know. So we're in the midst of we have Twitter and website and other things. So we're not quite ready to reveal everything yet, but we're in the midst of working on that. But in terms of Twitters and stuff, how do we follow you?
I am BeardyConnect03.
And I'm on Twitter and other various social medias at Heidi and I.
And you can find me on most social media sites at Schneidz, SCHNEIDZ.
All right, and you can follow me at KEVOLE, and you can follow Tyler as well at T Noble. Next week, one of the topics we will address is that incident in Lethbridge, and the reason we're not talking about it this week is Tyler is a referee, and he probably has a